So I hope to keep this answer short and sweet to the point. But this is a good question. So do we have to obey everything? Okay, wait, let me see. So you only think we should keep the Ten Commandments, not all of God's laws, because pork is not in the Ten Commandments. Just curious, but I totally agree. With the man-made traditions making you. Oh, I don't think you've. I don't know if it cut off or something, but anyways, to answer though, so you want to start with the Ten Commandments. So you want to get rid of, this includes then getting rid of the pagan holidays, not partaking in it. If you've never heard that before, I can leave you information for you to check it out to see why we should not be partaking in Christmas, Easter, or like, whether we're doing it or just like, oh, I'm going to go to Christmas dinner. So like, there's no reason as a believer, especially once he wakes you up to his truth, to be partaking these days. They're very wicked and leading many people to hell. So that's a big part of the Ten Commandments. But you want to start with the Ten Commandments, and yes, eat clean, because eating clean, that was never a part of sacrificial law. And if you read Genesis 7, like if you read Genesis 6 through 9, but especially Genesis 7, it talks about the clean and unclean animals. So they were there in the beginning, since the beginning. So it's not like this is a new concept where suddenly in the law of Moses sort of thing that it just was suddenly added, like out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So yeah, you still have to do that. So that's the thing. So you start with those things, not touching the blood and things like that. Acts 15. And then that's the thing. When you start with the milk, he'll show you the meat. So as you continue and progress in your walk, so once you start with just the simple 10 commandments, whether you're doing it just literally and then obviously spiritually and things like that, doing John 14 through, especially John 14 through 15, when you read both chapters, especially 15 talks about the pruning process. But it's also like he'll also, and then eventually, if you're keeping his commandments, then he'll give you the spirit of truth to lead you and guide you in all the truth, John 16:13, and show you things to come. So once you start walking like Yeshua did, once you start keeping the commandments, and then start teaching people to do to keep the commandments as well, he keeps growing you in understanding, and maturing you in your walk, so you can get established and be firm and sound in the faith. And the thing is, you won't understand what does and doesn't apply if you're not even keeping the simple 10 commandments. So he added no more to the 10 commandments, but there's also other things, like for example, like don't sleep with animals. Well, that's the thing. If you're not gonna cheat on your husband, you're not gonna sleep with with animals, right? So that's just sort of like a common sense sort of thing. So there's things that may not be blatantly under the 10 commandments, but as Yeshua said in Matthew 22, how the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So loving God, keeping his commandments, the 10 commandments, and then loving your neighbor, which is rebuking them, fulfilling the royal law, like loving your neighbor as yourself. And that's how you do it. Leviticus 19:15 through to 18. And again, there might be a bit more that goes into it, but I'm just trying to keep this short and sweet to the point so that you can understand it plainly. But it's so, I'm not saying it's literally just the 10 commandments. So say if I'm like, okay, just the 10 commandments, but if you want to go do incest, like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that sort of thing. It's just one of those things. He gives you understanding of what does and doesn't apply. It's just like, for example, tzitzits. You don't have to wear tzitzits anymore because they were there for a reason, for a time, to help you, remind you to keep the 10 commandments in the first place. But since we're not under a schoolmaster anymore, we're under grace, which is conviction, the divine influence on our heart that basically teaches us to deny ungodliness, worldly lust, so we can live soberly, righteously in the present age to come, and be peculiar people, zealous for good works. Titus 2:11 through 14. It's like as he convicts you, he shows you, oh yeah, do this, don't do, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not like I'm saying literally every aspect of it, because again, but it's like, the thing is, it's like some parts of the law just sort of expound a bit more, I guess, on the 10 commandments sort of thing. I hope that makes sense. But those are just some examples. So it's again, not literally, I'm not saying, when me and my brothers and sisters say keep the 10 commandments, we don't mean like just literally in the sense like, yeah, so it says don't cheat on your husband, but you can go fornicate, like incest, for example. You can go do that. Like, no, we're not saying that sort of thing, because again, if you're not going to cheat on your husband, you're not going to go sleep with a family member, right? It's like that sort of thing. I don't know. I hope I'm making sense. It's like also something to keep in mind is the law is spiritual now. So it's not every aspect is literal sort of thing. Kind of like Deuteronomy 22. And I think it's verse 5 where it talks about, how women shouldn't like basically be dressing as a man and man shouldn't be dressing as a woman, however it's phrased, right? So there's a literal aspect to it. Like I shouldn't go around coveting the appearance of a man, and a man shouldn't go around coveting appearance of the woman, right? So there is a literal aspect to it, but it's so much deeper than that. It's also in regards to authority. So I shouldn't want the authority of a man, and a man should not want authority like the woman has. Like the man's supposed to lead and the woman's supposed to submit. So I hope again that makes sense. So there's different, and the law is good if one uses it lawfully. So there's certain things in the law that are good to know, but it's not like every single part you literally have to do, because Yeshua put an end to sacrifices, oblations, stoning, and circumcision, things like that. I would say like those things don't apply, because circumcision, for example, was always representative of the heart. Yes, there was a literal time circumcision was in place, but now it's really about the heart, circumcising your heart, because someone could get circumcision physically but not be circumcised spiritually. If that makes sense. I feel like I'm going around and around in circles with this, because there's just a lot that goes into it. But it's like if you want to know what applies, you start with the 10, and then it's like one of those things. As you keep progressing in your walk, he'll show you the rest. I really hope that made sense. But anyways, that was a good question. And I really hope I answered with, in spirit and in truth. And